The conversation that we're going to be talking about, you saw the title of this slide, which was Win Every Revenue Moment. Everybody would love to win every revenue moment, right? Every deal, right? You don't want to have anything slipping. You want to make sure that you have a great one-on-one. You want to have a great pipeline inspection meeting. We call these revenue moments. I'm going to be talking about RevCG, which is a set of operating principles that people are injecting into their revenue process. I'll just start by telling you a little bit about me, and I'll talk about this thing called a gift. Kevin Canarium, who's our CRO, talks about it as a privilege, and it has to do with purpose, and that has to do with people, everybody in this room. And I just was hacking these slides together on my drive in. So I'm 53. If you would go back in time and you saw Andy Byrne at 30, and somebody said to me, "Hey, Andy, your second child will almost die, be at Stanford ICU for 17 days in a coma, lose all of his hearing, and have balance challenges for the rest of his life. You will lose your father-in-law in a tsunami that's going to hit Thailand where it wipes out 300,000 people. 45 days later, you will lose your mother-in-law to cancer, and then a handful of years later, your brother will commit suicide jumping off of a overpass down to a freeway locally here in the Bay Area." Have you shocked yet? Why do I bring that up? I think it's just important just to maybe be a little bit more human in how we go about our life and our work. And everyone's heard, hey, we got to be more vulnerable and we got to create some safety. And I think it's really important for us to be role models and to talk about that. So why do I bring that up? Because I feel like that tragedy gives us a gift, which is we look through life through a different set of glasses. And that gift, I feel like, is every day I try to make people's lives better. Again, Kevin calls it a privilege and what we get to do. So I was thinking about all the people in this room. Hardest job, go to market, I believe. Right? I grew up as an SDR. Last 30 years has been my privilege to be able to be around the revenue process. Last 10 years, it's been my professional responsibility to help CROs answer the most important question: will they meet, beat, or miss on revenue? So that brings us to RevCG, and the passion I have around all the people in this room and my vocation. And let's just do a quick pop quiz interaction. What is the rev in RevCG? Okay, good. Wow, you guys are pretty good. Okay. Anybody know what the C is? Anyone? Want to guess? Not Clari. That's a pretty good one, actually. Good answer. CAC payback. No, it's collaboration. Okay, anyone want to guess what the G is? You knew that answer, Rajiv. You can't answer the question. Okay, yes. Revenue collaboration and governance. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, okay? Later. And yes, I'm going to bring up AI. Everyone's talking about AI, but I'm going to go street level on how we're actually implementing AI, generative AI, and how it's actually changing lives. We'll get through that. But let me just go back in history 10 years ago. Why did I start Clari? One word: pain. I went to Sequoia Capital, Jim Getz, Doug Leone. I sat down with them. We built 4 companies together. And I said, I can't believe how brutal it is running the sales process. These poor reps, managers, and execs thinking about how they run their meetings, how they try to manage their pipeline. And I started to think about, okay, well, what's the problem here? We have the CRM, and everyone in this room has felt this. CRM doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, so what do? Go to Excel. Okay, and we got Excel hell from rep to exec, right? It's all over the frickin' place, right? And then pivot tables that get huge, you go, oh my God, it's not going to work. Excel is breaking on my laptop, so what do? We go to BI, right? So we said, let's go think about why this is. And we looked at the architecture of the CRM, the database there, and we saw some inadequate things inside that database. It wasn't a time series architecture, didn't have a real-time sync. It couldn't normalize data. And for all of us in the room, I just want to hit one point, is that in running revenue, there's really three things that we as business leaders want to do. We want to have attribution, right? Holy Grail. We want to have correlation and correlate what's good, what's bad, how do we repeat it, and we want to predict. We want to have prediction. And the CRM couldn't do that. So we said, okay, let's go build a new system, we call it revenue database, from the ground up, and we'll make sure that we can help a rep close deals faster. Could we help a manager drive more revenue? Could we help an exec boost the predictability and accuracy of their forecasts? And we didn't know what the hell we were going to call the product. And I remember Rajiv and team were hunting me down, spending more time with me, wanting to know more. And things took off for us. We built this really interesting platform, and yeah, we were doing things that finally somebody had solved for these personas. And Jay, and I remember we had this great moment. We got to about 200 customers, and Jay and Rajiv and the whole Sapphire team, by the way, love this team, love this firm, incredible value add. I had multiple term sheets, and then I get a gang tackle over text message. I get 8 text messages that come up. It was beautifully coordinated. And then anyway, so we started our relationship, and big fans of what they do, and it's been fun. So that's been great. So we said, all right, great. We're helping sales drive more efficiency, more growth, more predictability, and then we had this really fun watershed moment. And it happened at Adobe. Anybody here from Adobe? Do we have anyone here at Adobe? Okay, so Stephen Frieder at Adobe, we had sold them a fairly large license, and the license, the usage of the license actually was just licensed for the sales teams, and then it started to increase the usage by 30%, 40% in like a handful of weeks. And so we went to Stephen Frieder and Matt Thompson, the former president over there, and we said, what are you guys doing? Because, we only built this for your sales teams. They said, oh yeah, but there's all these Excel spreadsheets, and in marketing and pre-sales, we brought them into the Clari platform because they want to use the platform to predict Q+1 and Q+2 and how much pipeline do we need to create. And then we have this net dollar retention motion, and they're in all their Excel spreadsheets. And then we just brought them into Clari, and we went, oh, really? That's what you did? Anyways, we had this moment where we said, oh my gosh, it's so much more than just sales. And we realized there's all these revenue critical employees that are outside of sales, and that there's never been a system built from the ground up to help them all collaborate and run revenue. So that was a big aha moment, and we took off again, and then we had other rounds that were raised. So Silver Lake and Blackstone were specifically excited about it because Clari was showing up in their board meetings, and the CRO was showing, hey, here's how we're going to meet, beat, or miss. Here's how we're going to run pipeline, et cetera. And we had this moment where we realized revenue, and this is why I just think it's crazy as we think about how life used to be before implementing a revenue platform. We used to think about it as an outcome, and it's not, right? It's the most important business process in the company. Little history over the last 12 months. So what's going on in the market? And then I'm going to get to specifically RevCG and what that is and how it can help all of your companies drive more efficiency, growth, and predictability. Last 12 months have been kind of crazy. Earlier this year, CNBC dropped their recent jobs report. Fastest growing job in the United States is revenue operations. Yeah, I know. And I thought this wasn't a PR stunt that was done by our team. We didn't pull off some magic here. There's 500,000 jobs on LinkedIn. That's RevOps, right? We know, all of you know, the CRO title didn't exist 10 years ago, right? So something special is happening here. All the data around all the venture firms suggests that there's over 300 brand new companies in the last 300 days that have been started and focused on doing innovation around the revenue process. That's one company every 24 hours. Kind of crazy. All of the SIs are now getting religion on this. We signed up with Deloitte at Dreamforce. There's other firms that are building revenue transformation practices because they want to help their companies drive more efficiency, growth, and predictability. And I'll just do a little shout out for us. The one sales slide is that we now have $2 trillion worth of pipeline going through our product every 90 days across 1,500 customers. Really excited about that. Proud of that from two of us just sitting in a garage. So what's driving all this? What's driving all this is the imperative that we all have, hey, are we going to beat or miss on revenue? How do we do that? How do we do that well? And it's not just one number. Everyone knows the rubric of revenue is super complicated, right? Every deal, all the reps, every product line, every region, every segment, right? It's complicated. And answering this question is tough. And what's the problem? What's the problem behind the problem? Now, this is kind of interesting because no one was able to name it until about 2 years ago. And customers started actually telling us, hey, I'm leaking revenue all over the place. And I don't find out about it until after the fact. I go, wait, can we do a retro? Can we go and, let's dig in on why we missed that quarter or why we thought our assumptions in the financial model actually did not pan out? And they call it revenue leak. So what is revenue leak, right? It's leads that never get touched, targets that also never get touched, the leads go stale, your deals that you thought were in commit, they slip into next quarter, and then you look at a bunch of closed lost inventory and you go, wait, why did we lose all those deals? And you have no freaking idea, right? And this is happening all over the place. And it's a big deal. BCG just came out with a recent report that suggests that there's $2 trillion worth of economic destruction that is happening across B2B companies, of which there's 140,000 of them, right? That's pretty significant. Our own Clari Labs, we did an analysis that suggests companies are losing 15% of their revenue every year due to revenue leak. So do the math. Go into your operating plans right now. Go into that one number that's in your head, right, that you want to achieve, right? Imagine if you could increase that by 7, 8, 15%. Be significant, right? You'd be the hero of the company. So why is this happening? What we see is a lot of companies, the root of it is that they have these disparate, disconnected tools, right? The team at Adobe, they term this the three-headed hydra. And it's brutal, not cool. So what do we want to do? What is the industry trying to do? What are we all trying to do? We're trying to go from pervasive revenue leak to total revenue precision, right? That is the repeatable, predictable production of our revenue so we can, beat and raise is not a metaphor, it's actually design, that we want to design a beat and raise cadence with the CFO so we know how to manage street and have durable shareholder growth. So how do we do that? Well, there's been some tech, and I'm going to go through RevCG that has nothing to do with tech. So people are deploying and moving off the three-headed hydra. They're moving onto revenue operations platforms. They're also deploying conversational intelligence. They're deploying sales engagement. And what's happening, what we're seeing across all of our customers, and I don't know about you inside your environments, is that every single conversation we have, they say, we want to consolidate all these things. We want to consolidate conversational intelligence, sales engagement, revenue operations. And how they're thinking about it is, I got internal workflows, right? That is from rep to exec, all of the internal workflows, and then you have the external workflows. And we want to be able to see across all that work, all that labor pool, the connections to the customer, and we want to be able to correlate, predict, and attribute how the hell did all that stuff go down? How did we get to those results? Now, that'll drive efficiency, growth, and predictability. That's the technology piece of it, right? So for those of you that are talking to your RevOps professionals, think about, okay, how are we going to unify all this, simplify it, so we can have a simple, efficient platform to run revenue. Now, the next big thing I want to talk about, which is what I talked about in the beginning, which is around RevCG and running revenue. Now, a lot of people are are wondering, okay, well what is running revenue? What do you mean running revenue? Normally what people used to say is they say, oh, revenue, yeah, revenue, it's rev rec, right? At the end of the quarter, and we want to recognize the revenue. Actually, no, the revenue process starts in the very beginning when we're trying to create our leads and our MQLs and our SQLs. It all starts in the beginning. So now, all the people in this room and the teams that you all run, let's talk about a day in the life of those teams. Think about all those meetings that happen every day, of every week, of every month, of that 13-week quarter. Current quarter and next quarter. And all of the meetings that are one-on-ones, pipeline inspection meetings, slip deal reviews, white space analysis, account planning, and yes, forecast calls, right? And doing all these different forecasts across all the regions. So what's happening here across this, we call it a revenue cadence, is all these employees, what are they doing? They're trying to collaborate. They go into the meetings, they have a discussion, they're opening up whatever technology that they're using, and they're trying to collaborate to do their best jobs, to run the revenue process and collaborate around revenue. So that's the C in revenue collaboration. Pretty straightforward, right? That's what everyone is doing. Now, the interesting thing is most of my time I'm spending time with CROs and boards and CEOs, and what they're saying is, and I'll quote Amit Singh, Chief Business Officer of Palo Alto Networks, who has said, Andy, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to control the outcome. I'm trying to control accountability, alignment, discipline, behaviors across the 13-week cadence so we can have consistent total revenue precision. So revenue governance is around how do we control all this. So this is an example of the cadence. What I want you all to go think about is, do we have a blueprinted cadence? Do you know how you run it? I mean, I've talked to boards right now and I say, hey, how do you run revenue? To the head of the audit committee, and they go, I don't know. I don't know how we run revenue. Hey, you don't? Wait, isn't that important? Shouldn't you know how the CRO is executing the blueprint? So that's a piece where you need to go back to your companies and you need to ask yourself, okay, if we don't have one, in most companies, it's kind of crazy, like 90% of the CROs and CEOs I talk to, they don't have this. They don't have a blueprint. Right? That's why Deloitte and Accenture are all excited about opening up practices here, because they think there's a lot of money in it. So revenue collaboration and governance is not some cool marketing thing and positioning thing. It's actually a set of operating principles that, as we've learned over 1,500 companies, now we're actually packaging this up. We're going into these accounts and we're saying, okay, yeah, you got all the tech and you want to think about conversational intelligence. You want to think about RevOps. You want to think about sales engagement and all the tech. But let's just talk about your people and your process. And I think if anybody leaves this room with one thing, it's you should be going back to your teams and asking, what's our revenue collaboration and governance strategy, right? And what is our blueprint? And could we get better at it? And I'll give you some examples of better, right? People are going, okay, Andy, go street level and tell me some examples. Okay. And if you want more data, talk to Kevin Canarium. He's a legend at all this stuff, trained under Bill McDermott, SAP and Siebel. Why aren't you running slip deal reviews every Thursday? But you wait and you run slip deal reviews in a QBR after the end of the quarter? If you move that up in your cadence and you run it on Thursdays, you can pattern match across all the geos and understand, I got a product issue, I have a pricing issue, I have a region issue. So that's one example. Another example that we learned from Okta was, hey, how often are you doing next quarter work? Most of the companies we talk to, it's crazy. They don't really start thinking about next quarter. I know they talk about, hey, I'm all over next quarter. I got a dot. I'm on top of it. They don't have it. And they wait until like week 10 or week 11. So at Okta, what we did is we actually moved that up and we changed the whole operating cadence. right? And we thought about, we looked at it all and we said, okay, well, every even week, every odd week, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Every odd week, only thing we'll do is talk about current quarter. Every even week, 2, 4, 6, 8, starting at week 2 and week 4, the only thing that they'll do is they'll talk about is next quarter. So what happens? So you have behavior change in the field. The rep goes, okay, Sangeeta's going to call me, and it's week 4. I know the only thing she's going to ask me is, hey, what are we doing for next quarter? And you have to have your, and so you had a behavior change. And why is that a big deal? Well, at Okta, what happened is once we instituted this current quarter, next quarter motion in their cadence, they had the fastest start ever in the company's history the next quarter. They had the best linearity and they had the highest ASPs because there was not that hockey stick discounting. So that's another example of things that you want to explore, exploit, look at where it's really not going well, and then make change. And that's called revenue collaboration and governance. So that's called RevCG. This is not marketing hyperbole here. The companies that are running RevCG, and we've got all the practices and white papers and the bill of material and the SOW to send to you so you guys can be students and learn. It's driving more pipeline. It's driving higher win rates. It's driving higher conversion rates. So RevCG. A little bit about AI that I'll talk about because you can't come to a Silicon Valley presentation and not talk about AI and generative AI. I'll be very quick. I've got 2.5 minutes. We've been doing predictive AI since 2014 when we first turned on things and we started working with Nutanix. We started working with HP, Aruba Networks, a handful of other great companies. And we started predicting, okay, will that rep make their deal? Will we make the quarter? Will you meet, beat, or miss? So we've been doing that for a long time. A lot of it is around your data and do you have really rich data? So you got to think about your data strategy. On the generative AI thing, as we think about our approach here, our philosophy and our strategy that we talk about at the board meeting is shrinking time to revenue. How long does it take you to get results from your revenue process? How long does it take a rep to update their deal? How long does it take a manager to deduce, I got 10 reps that have 10 deals, that's 100 deals, where do I spend my time? How do I figure out where deals are slipping? If we can shrink the time to taking action in every one of those meetings, and if we can shrink the time it takes to deduce, to infer, to reveal, what we're doing is we're just sprinkling all of this generative AI inside those meetings along with those people, We call it Rev AI. It's like ChatGPT with quota. Finally, if I think about for all of you as students, and you want to actually take something from the presentation, take a shot of this QR code, take it back to your head of RevOps, and here's the key word, have a provocative discussion, have a provocative debate about where do we suck, right? And drive that conversation. And this has nothing to do with the tech. And it's everything to do with, are you running a world-class process? Are you running a RevCG operating rhythm? And have that bubble up and reveal all that stuff. And you do that, you have those honest conversations around RevCG. Mark my word, you will be better in your careers and everyone on your team will win. Every revenue moment. Going back to the title. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So, hey, Andy, as a revenue operations leader, I want to thank you for having such a great company like Clari and a solution for a lot of us RevOps leaders.
Thank you.
You pointed out the rise of RevOps. I'm kind of curious. With the rise of the job also comes the rise of the expectations of the role as well. And a while back, it was, hey, we need the data-driven decisions and produce the data. Now it's, hey, we really need the insights and how to drive the business forward. I'm kind of curious, and how have you seen some of your best-in-class customers really use Clari to find those insights quickly to drive the business?
How do I say this in a simple way and not to sound too verbose? The RevOps profession is going from reactive to proactive.
Totally.
Would be probably the headline. I think that the CROs are becoming much more data driven. There's a lot of CROs out there that are not data driven. They're field generals, they're inspiring leaders, but they look at data and they look at an Excel spreadsheet and they go, whoa, I can't. So I think the RevOps professional is to help them be more data driven. You need to drive not just around data, and I at the risk of being redundant, literally if you start with how the hell do we run the revenue process and blueprint that out, I mean, I would imagine that there are people in this room that say, I can't believe I don't have that. That's crazy. Start there. So I feel like it's you're an architect now. We call them revenue architects. IT and CIOs are getting so much more involved in this decision because they realize that that is the most important business process and it's been neglected for 20 years. So we're seeing IT and CIOs lean in. And you know what I'd say is the RevOps profession is now sort of the hub. Bring IT in, bring the revenue leaders in, figure out the strategy, the blueprint, the crawl, walk, run. What are our revenue objectives? Do we want to drive higher net dollar retention? Or maybe what we want to do is we want to penetrate the Global 2000. We want to get growth out of that. Maybe what we want to do is it's all about rep productivity. So you have to drive those strategic conversations and then instrument, run the process, have the yield, and every 90 days see if you're getting better. And that does not happen right now across revenue professionals. It's crazy. So.
Any other questions?
How do you combat the AE mindset challenge of wanting to maximize sell time with integrating this revenue management system?
Yeah, what I'd say is, first, this is a sales comment, so you got to put the filter on. We built something that they love, right? You want to give them an interface that they love, right? That actually is designed for the AE. The second thing I'd say is that if you want to make the AE's life better, it's not about the AE. You go to the FLM, you go to the frontline manager, and you arm the frontline manager, and you give them the weaponry, the AE will benefit. And then final thing I'll say is that you think about conversational intelligence and sales engagement and RevOps, and those reps, they're swiveling. They're going to this, they're going to this. And so that would be my third observation is that we're seeing a trend toward collapsing it all down so they don't have to swivel across multiple tools. That's what we're seeing. So that's how you win over the AE is build a solution that they love, help themselves by arming the frontline manager with better visibility, eliminating blind spots, and then eliminate multiple tools and the fatigue that goes along with it, and they end up loving their jobs more, right? Because they get time back to sell and they get time back with their families and they win. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.